Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Matt Watson. Hey, Matt.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to today. I get to have one of my broadcasting and audio idols. I'd say video, but I think today's guest may also agree that much like ourselves, we have faces made for radio. So I'm going to get right in and I'm going to introduce today's guest, Rex Hudler, Kansas City Royals color commentator, former Major League player, and a guy that Kansas City knows and loves. Rex, what's up?
Thank you, Matt. And Matt, great to be with you. Those are very kind words from you. Gosh, what a blessing to be on your show. Especially, I saw all the names, all the famous people, especially my partners, Montgomery, Monty, and Joe Goldberg. I mean, I'm thrilled to be joined with that great company, but especially you guys.
You know, one of the things is I'm not going to say whether or not Goldberg paid me to make the faces for radio comment. So
So I use that all the time because I got the perfect face for radio. But they give me the
so do we. Yeah. Well, anyway, Rex, once again, welcome to Startup Hustle. And yes, we've had some of your peers and coworkers on. It's made for really great. Modern radio is the podcast in so many different ways. And you know, with the interesting background you have and the entrance that you've made into Kansas City, including replacing one of Kansas City's most beloved ball players and announcers in the booth, I know you have a whole lot of interesting and fun stories. So I think if we could just start by getting a little bit of backstory about who's Rex Hudler.
Matt, first of all, you can't replace a legend like Frank White, okay? And my broadcasting job, the other team that I broadcasted for 11 years, the guy that I came after was named Sparky Anderson. You can't replace Sparky Anderson either.
True.
So I was used to that coming in here, but I had no idea a much smaller community, still big sports town, but still smaller community than Los Angeles. That when I got here, you know, Frank White is their guy. I mean, he was their
man.
So it was not easy, and the Royals told me it was going to be very difficult for me. But Rex Hudler is a guy that was born in a great family with great genetics, good genes, character. My great grandpa was the greatest man I ever knew. My grandma was the greatest woman I ever knew because she loved. She never said an unkind word. I loved her immensely. And my great granddaddy was character. He was character. So that was my mom's side. My mom's side, my dad's side. I got to give credit. And I had nothing to do with it, but I had really good genes, and I'm very passionate, and I have a huge character. There's no doubt about it. And then playing 21 years of professional baseball, that made me even into more of a character because it's such a hard game. It's a hard sport. And I found out that laughter cures all. So it really fit. Baseball, the sport, fit me well. Now, I was a football player, though, in a baseball player's body. Grew up in Fresno, California. Had a real nice upbringing once again. Of course, I did have there was a glitch in the road where my mom divorced my dad, and then my adopted dad, he wanted to adopt me. So my name was Mobley, and then I went to Hudler when my new dad adopted me. So I kind of had to maneuver my way through that at 8 years old. That was kind of a tough deal, and I have a lot of empathy for young people that have to go through broken families. So I recovered from that. My Hudler father was really good. I couldn't wait till he came home from work. I'd hear the garage door open, and I would go run to the door, and we would play catch, and he was there for me, and I really enjoyed competing. I remember recess and PE were my two favorite subjects always, okay? But I was a competitor, and I loved competing, especially at recess, and I'm going to beat my opponent. I'm going to beat my buddies. and it just was it was just built in me. It seemed like from fifth grade, I wrote my paper to my teacher saying, "Hey, I want to be a professional athlete," and I'm sure 80% of the other kids, the other males, did the same thing. Anyway, I trusted God as a young person in my life, so my spiritual life was important to me, and I believe that God sees the future, and He allowed me to have the desires of my heart. And I remember my two brothers. I had an older and younger brother, and they chose to go a different direction. They didn't want to follow mom and dad's lead, so they kind of chose their own way. And when you're that young and you choose that route, it's tough. So I remember the principal would call my mom at home and on the wall phone and say, "Hey, we don't know where your son is today," and talking about my brothers. And my mom would cry, and she would, and I remember I hated seeing my mother cry. So I told myself, you're not the greatest, but you need to do everything you can to take care of her and take care of your mother. So God honors those who love their parents and honor their parents. So I believe that really I made an effort at home to get along with my folks and to do that. And God allowed me to have the desires of my heart. My senior year in high school, I had played all the sports. Thankfully, I'd never gotten injured. Bullard High School was a powerhouse high school. We were the top school in Fresno, California. I had just tremendous coaching. So I benefited not only from my genes, my parents, but I had tremendous coaching that helped me. And these guys, my baseball and football coaches, they really added that extra little knowledge that I needed in the sports. Ended up, my mom said, my senior year, "Son, you're playing soccer, baseball, and football. And you're good in all those, but don't you want to be great in one or two of them? Why don't you eliminate one and concentrate on two sports? And maybe something will happen." Mom was awesome. "Great, Mom. I thank you. I appreciate that." She knew exactly. I eliminated soccer because in 1978 there was no soccer. There was soccer, but it wasn't, it wasn't a prominent sport, and there wasn't a big money paying sport. So I chose football and baseball, and ended up had 25 Division I football scholarship offers. I had a great quarterback. I was a wide receiver. I could catch the ball. I had good speed from soccer. Soccer helped me develop my legs, my speed, my quickness. I owe most everything to soccer. Because speed and power are the two commodities an athlete's got to have, a professional, to make any money. And fortunately, the power came later for me, but I had the speed and the hands. Baseball season came, and there were scouts calling me on the phone, again, the wall phone, and I'd hear my mom say, "Don't waste your pick. My son's going to Notre Dame." So all the baseball scouts were calling, and she was shooing them away, and I kept listening. "Mom, wow, I don't know if you should be doing that." She goes, "Don't worry about it, son. I'm in control here." I was only 17 years old, so mom was still being mom. And the draft came. I walked home from school. No big deal. Typical day. I walk in the door. I said, "Mom, did the phone ring? Did anybody come? Did anybody call?" She goes, "Yeah, the damn Yankees drafted you." And I said, "Really? What'd you tell them?" I told them.
Rex, wait a second. So on the day of the draft, you went to school like it was no big deal,
right?
Because you just walked home after school and asked your mom if you had been drafted.
Mom, did anybody call?
Well, you were a first-round draft pick. You were the 18th pick in the 1978 draft. Like, right. Now, that would have been in prime time. There would have been a camera crew in your living room. You would have been waiting for everyone would have cheered and all that. But you instead walked home from school. And how long it had been since they had called? I mean, Mom didn't think about coming to school and maybe pulling you out of class and saying, "Hey, by the way, the Yankees drafted you"?
No big deal. Had it been, especially with the New York Yankees, there would have been a lot of cameras and stuff. But, back then, right, they didn't do it. I remember they would send you a telegram or they would call you over the phone. And so I said, "Mom, what did you tell them?" She said, "I told them they wasted their pick." And I said, "That's all?" And she said, "Yeah." And so I said, "Way to go, Mom. You probably scared them off." So a week goes by. We don't hear back from the Yankees. And so I'm saying, "Way to go, Mom. You scared them off." She goes, "No, son, they'll be calling. I guarantee you. They had one pick and you were their number one pick." There was a couple other supplemental number one picks behind me. Matt Winters and Brian Ryder were after me. But sure enough, Mom's right again. Al Rosen, the vice president of the New York Yankees, Jack Butterfield, George Steinbrenner's right-hand man, flew out to Fresno, California, and they came to the front door, and I had my suit on, everything, and my mom lets them in, and she looks at me, and we had not discussed what was going to happen. She said, "Son, go to Mama Mia's Pizzeria and get your pizza and come back in 45 minutes." Okay, Mom. I was thinking they were going to let me sit through the negotiations and everything, but I did not have an agent present because I had to protect my amateur status. Okay, so it was just Mom and my dad, and then I left, and I came back to my house 45 minutes later, knocked on the front door. My own door was locked, and Mom comes to the door, and she goes, "Son, congratulations, you're a Yankee." So I was 17 years old, and so that's kind of how my baseball career started. I mean, it was a big change of plans in my life that this happened. But once again, God knows, and He knew exactly where He wanted me, and I'm so thankful that He chose baseball for me, because baseball taught me so much about who I am and so much about how tough it was. But I had no idea I was going to be a 10-year minor leaguer. Oh, man, I had no idea. But I had a lot to learn. I had a lot of growing up to do. And when I got there at 28 years old, I was ready. So, it was an interesting road. 19 different cities I played in, not making any money. Thankfully, my mom negotiated a $150,000 signing bonus.
So I have a question on that. I have a question. Did you pay her an agent commission?
No, I did not. But there was an agent in Fresno, and he recommended me to Notre Dame. So he kind of stayed close to the family, and he kind of helped her, give her tips. But there was no money exchange there. But I bought Mom a car later, and she was happy.
Okay, so as we've mentioned on prior episodes, and you can go back and listen to the episodes with Jeff Montgomery, former All-Star, Joel Goldberg, a good friend of the podcast. We look at an athlete at that point. You mentioned you were protecting your amateur status, but you were your own business at that point. Whether you're going to play football at Notre Dame or you're signing a contract with the Yankees, you're going into business for yourself. At 17 years old, what does that feel like? Like, to get the 18th pick is a really, really high pick in baseball. Didn't they used to have like 60 rounds back then or something? But
yeah,
I don't know. They expanded at one point, but 18, and then by the Yankees. I mean, how did that feel, and how overwhelming was that for you at 17?
Well, I was such a competitor that I was ready, and I loved any sport that I just finished. That was my favorite sport. So if after the football season was over, man, I was excited about football. And it's then going and taking my 5 visitations to my colleges I got to go to visit for football was really interesting. Notre Dame, Michigan State. Kirk Gibson showed me around Michigan State. Dan Devine was the manager, or was the head coach at Notre Dame. They wined and dined me there. I got to go to Berkeley. I got to go to UCLA, Arizona State, and then competing in baseball, and in front of all those scouts that were at my baseball games at Bullard High School. And I remember looking on the sidelines and seeing all these guys out there with their hats on, their clipboards and their stopwatches. And I'm saying, hey, they're watching me. Isn't it great? I'm going to Notre Dame. I'm not even care about. I'm just playing baseball to have fun. Watch this play. Watch this. I'm gonna hit it to me. I'm gonna show you something right here. So having that mentality and not being afraid and not being scared and going out and playing my game and having fun allowed me to be great in my high school days. So I had no pressure. I didn't feel pressure. Now, after I graduated, they flew me to New York City to meet George Steinbrenner because he wanted to meet his bonus baby. I was his first bonus baby. So it's a little bit tight on that one. Going in and meeting George Steinbrenner and yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir. And he let me come into his office and he pushed a button and the drapes open and there was Yankee Stadium, and it was really impressive. I was a little nervous. I didn't say much in the meeting. All I said was yes sir, no sir. And comes out 7 years later after he traded me, he liked me because of my first impression. He liked my manners, my firm handshake. Those were things my mother taught me. So that goes back again. He liked the discipline. So Steinbrenner, he loved football players too. As they went on, he drafted Elway, Drew Henson. There's other football players that he also drafted. But okay, you're going off to upstate New York to Oneonta. Good luck to you, son. So I got on a plane in New York City and flew, an hour or so up to upstate New York and started my 17-year-old career against college guys that graduated. They were all in the draft that were 22, 23 years old. So I playing against those guys that were that old didn't bother me one bit. I'm a competitor and I'm very intense, and I held my own. I hit 285 and made the All-Star team. I stole 17 bases when I was 17 against these other college guys. So I was never timid until I got to the majors. And once I got to the majors, I got a little nervous and got a little shaky, and therefore it was a tough beginning for me because I wasn't getting to play every day either with the New York Yankees. Steinbrenner or Billy Martin, Yogi Berra, my managers, they didn't like young rookies. They always would buy their established players. So to answer your question, it was not real intimidating. All I did was use my manners and show respect to these men that came into my house.
So, Matt, I think this would be a good time for you to pick up some baseball tips from HUD, because last time I played baseball with you was about almost a year ago, and we were taking batting practice on the field at the K.
That's right.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, Matt, because I remember standing on the grass at center field with you, and we're sitting trying to avoid getting hit by errant balls, but looking up at the stadium and going, "Holy shit, this thing's huge!" Matt? What do you think your impression would be if you walked into Yankee Stadium at Rex's age?
Well, at 17, it would definitely be overwhelming. I mean, the first time you did it, Rex, you said, were you 28?
When I got to the majors, no, I was 24 when I got my first call up.
Okay.
We call those cups of coffee.
Okay.
84, my manager, Yogi Berra, made it real easy for me because he was such a gentleman. He was so kind and so easy. He made me feel comfortable and everything. And then they fired Yogi and then brought Billy Martin on. So my 84, 85 cups of coffee with the New York Yankees, I had those two skippers. And Yogi was really gentle and easy. Billy tried to intimidate me, and he was kind of a real hard ass. Everything people say. So,
well, that's got to be really overwhelming. Not only to be there as a Yankee, to be there in front of 20,000 people, but also knowing like this is your chance. Like you've been in the minors all this time, and you're there, and you've got your cup of coffee, as you say. What is that to be like completely overwhelming of like every single pitch matters so much because you got to impress everybody to stay on the team?
Yeah, it was I felt a lot of pressure. Me, a guy named Don Mattingly, and Scotty Bradley were the only rookies on the team. And Donnie had a starting role. He had a starting job. And then, of course, he went off in 84 and 85 and was an MVP right away. Willie Randolph was a great second baseman for the New York Yankees. He was their captain, and that's who I came up behind. These I've never, ever, with the rest of the teams, now I had great teammates on every single team I played for, but I never got mentored better than I did with the New York Yankees. Those guys were all very classy guys. That helped take some of the pressure off me. Willie Randolph made me feel comfortable, let me take ground balls with him every day, when typically the second string guy takes him later after he's done. He would let me take ground balls with him and coach me along the way and talk to me about the league and the competition, which was total class. He didn't have to. A lot of guys back then were intimidated by guys who came up behind them. We got to take their job. Ken Griffey was a class act. No wonder Ken Griffey Jr. is like he is. His dad was a great baseball player too, and really had a lot of life, a lot of advice. I loved Phil Niekro. Phil Niekro was a Hall of Famer. He was fabulous. Ricky Henderson was fun to play with, but probably the best advice and the best mentor I had was a guy named Dave Winfield, the only guy to get drafted in all four sports, three major sports. Dave Winfield spent time with me. He sent me a limo on an off day and wanted to have the limo take me around New York City and if I just would go to a luncheon for one of his fundraisers. No problem, Winnie. Yeah, and hey, kid, I want you to fly on the airplane with me. And you went, really? You mean like next to you on the seat? Yeah. And so he spent time with me. He saw me, and I hustled. I remember getting a little chance to play, and I hit a little ground ball in the infield. In Yankee Stadium, grass was this deep. It was really hard to get a ball through the infield because I was a young, weak kid. So I hit a ground ball, but I hustled through the bag and did a somersault and rolled past the bag. And I come back to the dugout, and there's 56,000 in Yankee Stadium on a good night when it's sold out.
Wow.
Yeah, 56,000. And so I got cheered going back to the dugout, and I get in the dugout and I'm going, what are they cheering for? They go, they're not used to seeing that kind of hustle. So they saw that the veteran players, and I was always had a smile on my face, and I was really, happy-go-lucky, and yes, sir, yes, sir. And that's what we did back then. We were all eyes and ears. We were no mouth at all. So I hustled and played hard and gave these guys the respect that they deserved, and they liked me. They liked me because of it. Dave Winfield said, kid, one thing's guaranteed a ball player. You're going to be an ex-ball player. And I seen you play. You're going to be an ex-ball player before you know it, before you want to be. But here's what you do while you're here. And before they send you to the minors, you make sure to take the blinders off and look around you and make sure that you shake hands with people. That these people that come to Yankee Stadium here, they own corporations. They're going to give you a job someday. Okay, you make sure you give them a firm handshake and you're kind to those people. Don't blow anybody off. And when you go back to the minor leagues, have your media relations guy come to you whenever he needs who needs a player to speak at a luncheon. He comes to you and you can start telling your story and start sharing with people and doing things. He told me this and I loved him. And I went, oh my gosh, this is like my daddy. He's giving me great information here. I'm going to do that. Sure enough, he was right. I went back to the minors, had some more seasoning. And, that was, that was 84, 85, 86, 7, and 88. 3 more years of AAA. And gosh, I finally got established at 28 and then went on to have broadcast now 20 years because the advice that he gave me about sharing my story and my life, it just worked and it fit. So whenever I see the great Dave Winfield, I hug him like a kid would hug his daddy. And I say, Winnie, thank you, man. Thank you for helping me in my career.
I actually read Dave Winfield's book when I was in like 8th grade. I remember that. Yeah. I had, because much like you, my favorite class was recess. So I had a fully loaded. I had like reading. The whole class was at Leawood Middle School, just sitting there and reading for an hour. And I was like, what's something I could read? And I went to the library. They had Dave Winfield's book. I remember reading it. Yeah. He's from Minnesota, right?
He's a Golden Globe.
Yeah. And he's done real well. So Rex, I have a question for you. Anybody that's picked 18th overall in the draft is good. And with that, you're probably used to being the best on the team. You're used to being chased after and all this stuff. And now you go into 10 years in the minors and you just rattled off a series of years where AAA was 3 or 4 or 5 of them. What did you learn from that? I mean, because that's humbling. I would imagine it's humbling. And I could also think it could be easy to quit on some days. Like I've heard you talk a little bit about it on the air, but I'd like to hear you expand on how you looked at your own business of being a ball player halfway through those AAA years. Kind of, like, am I going to make it? Am I not? Like, where does this go or whatever?
Great question, Matt. I can tell you though, having a mom and dad that helped me out with my finances, that bonus was big. It was a dual signature account. So that started that side of the business there to protect that money. And I couldn't just take any money when I wanted it. They only let me use that money when I needed to make a car payment, or actually not a car payment because my dad let me pay the car off in cash. I bought a 280ZX and wrote the guy cash for it at 17 years old. The dude freaked out, man. The dealer, I'll never forget it. But he protected just for one payment for a car insurance a year. So it ended up the 10 years, I would make enough money during the baseball season to live during the baseball season. And then I had to get odd jobs at home. I worked for a ski company through a family friend, snow skiing. I tuned skis. I sold ski equipment. I stacked lumber. I drove tractors for outdoor farms. I love the outdoors. And I was going to be in the agriculture business if I'd have went to college. That was probably what I would have studied. since I grew up in Fresno, where they grow all the fruit and nuts, in all the valley, the fertile valley. Help Matt direct me where I was going.
Well, I'm just curious about that. You're expanding on hustling in the minor league years, but
it was horrible. So it started by being sent back to the Florida State League for 5 years. I played in A-ball, 6 years.
Well, you only make a couple $100 a week at that point, right? If that.
I wish $500 a month.
Oh shit! All right.
Yeah, and so 6 years in A-ball, that was like really rough. I had a few injuries, but Steinbrenner would always buy his free agents, so there was always a logjam. No one ever moved. Now they kept their eye on their number one pick, and they kept their eye on me, but it was not good. I can tell you that I had it before I even got to AAA. I had it up to here, especially when I was going back to the Florida State League. The previous year, I hit 300, and so I'm going back there again. I went. They have your names on a piece of paper in the minors. There's 400 guys in the minors, and so that's how you find out what team you're on. And when I saw my name was going back to Fort Lauderdale again for the Yankees, I was going, "What? Are you kidding?" I packed my stuff and I went back to the complex and had my thoughts of going home. This is bull. I can't believe they're treating me like this. So, it's guys don't do 6 years in A-ball, let alone, 6 years in the minors, let alone 6 years in A-ball. So I got back to the complex and I'm sitting in my room. My roommates are all at the ballpark, and I'm thinking to myself, your mom didn't raise a quitter. You're not quitting, man. I'm going to go back to the Florida State League and I'm going to hit 400. They're going to have to they're going to have to move me up. So I took my stuff back there, and I went, and I'm playing a month or two in the Florida State League, hitting 300. And George Steinbrenner owned a hotel there in the Florida State League. It was called the Bay Harbor Inn, and it's right there in Tampa. And we would stay there when we played the St. Petersburg Cardinals, and he would let us keep our meal money and eat on the house. Steinbrenner was first class. So I asked my manager, Stump Merrill, "Hey, Stumpy, I'm going to write George a letter." "You are? Why?" I go, "Because I'm going to ask him for a promotion." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Hud, are you hung that well? Do you really have stones like that?" I go, "Absolutely. What? You got any tips?" He goes, "Yeah. Make sure it's a short letter. You don't like long letters." "Thank you." So my roommate, Dickie Scott, and me wrote a letter. "Dear Mr. Steinbrenner, I'm presently hitting 300 in the Florida State League for the 5th year, and I would just hope that you would consider giving me a promotion." And so,
did you get one?
Rex Hudler. I take the letter to the Bay Harbor Inn at the front desk. I hand it to the lady at the front desk and say, "Hey, when Mr. Steinbrenner comes, would you please give this to him?" And she said, "He's here. I'll take it up to him right now." My booty got tight, man. Everything got tight. I was like, I wasn't expecting him to be there. I thought maybe sometime when he come to town in the next couple of weeks or whatever. So I go to the ballpark, and at 4 o'clock, we're playing catch, and there he is sitting with my manager, Stump Merrill. George Steinbrenner, the owner of the New York Yankees, is in an A-ball game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, hotter than heck, and he's sitting there talking. The meeting's over. I come down and ask my manager, "Stumpy, did he get my letter?" Stump had a big chew in. He's chewing. He goes, "Yeah, kid, he got it." I said, "Well, what did he say?" "He loved it, kid." And he went, and he spit. And I said, "Thank you." I went inside to the locker room and relieved myself because I had diarrhea bad. My stomach was so I was so nervous. What am I going to do? So played the game, got a couple hits for him. George would always watch the game, stay for the game. Got a couple hits, bus back to Fort Lauderdale. 6 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, the phone rang. "Hey, Hud, you're going to AAA."
Nice.
So I went the next day. I went from A-ball to AAA, right over there. And so I remember being on the airplane saying, "Self, if you pop off and say something to this guy like that and you lay an egg up in AAA, you're in trouble. You better go." So I went 83, 84, 85, had really good years, and they were talking about trading Willie Randolph, and finally they traded me instead. But
well, it's good you put all those years.
He kept his word, man. I loved it. The next day he made room in AAA. They only had 24 guys in the roster, and he made room for me.
That's amazing. Well, hey, you don't get what you don't ask for in most cases. Now, before we get past the Yankees, you mentioned.
But I just want to talk about you brought the business side. That was business. I had to take care of that.
That's
I
a
had to
great
ask my boss,
story.
hey, look, I'm looking for promotion. You got to give me another shot.
I'm going to write a letter to myself later and ask myself for a promotion, just so you guys know. So you mentioned that Yogi Berra was one of your managers. Now, Yogi's known for the interesting things that he says. Now, Rex, you know you are too. There are
I
HUD-isms.
got some yogi-isms in me too. I got some
Well,
yogi in me.
I'm wondering if that's where that started, because I did ask Joel Goldberg for his favorite HUD-ism, and he quoted by saying, "Every day is a day." And oh man, there's websites that seem to support HUD-isms. I mean, they're out there, but I'm wondering where that started, because that is something that has been a loving thing that Kansas City has appreciated about your color commentary and your personality. And I'm just wondering if you think Yogi got that started, or is that just a natural part of Rex?
No,
And maybe are you aware of what your favorite HUD-ism is?
wow, Matt, way to go, Matt and Matt. You guys I feel bad for you having to listen and listen. Here's what I can say about that. Yogi started playing baseball when he was 16 too, 15, 17, whatever. He was a very young kid out of St. Louis who started playing ball early. He got a high school diploma, maybe. I got a high school diploma. Okay, I had a 2.8 average, which was a little C plus average, but that was it. And then I was educated in the baseball world. So when you're educated in the baseball world, there's a lot of sayings and a lot of things you pick up from a lot of teammates from all over the world. So that's part of it, and some of those things stuck with me. And then having to endured the playing the 21 years, but then getting into the broadcast in the broadcasting industry, I was not hired for my verbal skills. So the things that come up, stuff that comes out, I try to think about it, but sometimes it just flows out. And thankfully I never had I never swore a lot, or I never used a lot of bad language. So I don't have to be too concerned about stuff like that coming out. But the things in baseball that happen, that are happening now in the 21st century were happening in the 20th century when I was playing ball. So it's very easy to be able to talk about it in the same terms. And I remember, just sitting in the dugout. I was a shocker, but I was a chirper. I loved talking smack in the dugout. I loved talking to my opponents and having stuff from the dugout. So I brought a lot of that with me. I don't really have a HUD-ism that I could tell you that I like, because sometimes, to tell you the truth, I get sick of myself, and it's embarrassing, because some of the things I say, I'll come home and my wife will say, "Did you know you said this?" And I went, "Oh, really? Oh." So
just know that as audience and fans, we're loving it, Rex. Like every part of it. It makes me want to tune in to the game. So I have a couple more, and one I love: be a fountain, not a drain.
Exactly. Come on, man. There's two kind of people. There's two kind of people in life. You either got something for somebody else, you got coming out, some kind of energy in your life, or some good words to say to somebody, or something positive. How about just a smile? That's what I hate about the masks. The mask, I gotta go. I went to Costco today, and I love smiling at people and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" That's a form of a fountain, some kind of light. You're giving somebody something. And then the other side of the world, unfortunately, is a drain. They suck you down. Okay? But we're all human, and in order to become a fountain again, you must be sucked down and recirculated through the muck of the world, but come back up. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's my deal. I don't know where I came up with that a long time ago, but you got to have some life for somebody, man. And then God put me in the perfect job. I can't believe it. The first job was the greatest job in the world. Absolutely the greatest job. And I played till I was 38 years old. I couldn't play no more. And then he gives me the second best job in the world. Talking about it. Unbelievable. And so I come to the ballpark every day the way I am right now, excited. I'm pumped. We got a game tonight, man. Check it out. And so my partners and everybody I work with are like, "Wow, HUD, take it easy, man. We got a 3-hour game." So everywhere I've gone, it's taken people time to understand where's the love coming from. It's the joy of the game. It's the happiness and the joy of life and the love of the game. That it's easy when I leave my troubles and everybody else leaves their troubles in the car out at the K, and I get out of my car and we're going to a ball game. So it's easy to be happy, and that's who you get. And I've learned how to back it down a little bit over the years so people can stomach it. But it is what it is. And by golly, they keep giving me a contract. They keep hiring me. So I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, I've got another one, and I've checked the math on this. It's correct. It's hard to sweep a doubleheader if you don't win the first game.
Now that's a yogiism right there. Yeah.
Is it?
Win
Is
game
it?
one, man.
Yeah.
So let's not get too worked up on who's pitching in game two and what all's going on, man. One game at a time. And see, there's so many things that baseball taught me. So many things, and that's one of them. Dude, I can't.
Now, Rex, I enjoy the ones like this next one the most, and this is where you usually keep me on my toes. He wants to feel the wood in his hands.
Now,
and you give me stuff like that a lot, right? and thank you. I'm happy I get to thank you on behalf of Kansas City and all of Royals Nation. Thank you.
That's the truth. He likes the feel of his wood in his hand, man, and that's the bat. The bat makes a living for these ball players. So that's where it came from. Now, I can't control everybody's dirty minds. Look, Matt. Look, I'm not saying yours is, but look, a lot of people that laugh are thinking sexually connotated words and stuff. But I didn't realize it either. But there was a kid on the Detroit Tigers team. I can't remember him. 10-year minor leaguer. And I love guys like that, man. They get a lot of love from me. There's not many of them out there. But so I went down to introduce myself to him, and I introduced myself to him, and he's standing in the dugout, and I went over and I hugged him, and he stiffened up on me. So we get to the next day, and here he comes. He's coming to the plate, and I tell Rhino, I got a chance to meet him yesterday, and he goes, "How really? What was that like?" I go, "Well, you know what? I wasn't sure how it was gonna happen, but I went up and I hugged him, and he stiffened up on me." And so Goldberg, of course, he's howling, laughing in the corner. And I'm thinking, what did I do? What did I say? You hugged him, Hud, and he stiffened up on you.
Rex, okay. Thank you. No, thank you. Look, over the last, 6 years in the booth for the Royals or more?
No, it's going to be my 9th year if we ever get going this year.
And I got to tell you that I've enjoyed all of it. It was interesting.
Thanks, Matt.
So now one more. Why not? Does football even have a Pro Bowl?
Hey, I mean,
yes, it does, Rex. It does. Yeah. It's called the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, but it's like two-hand touch.
Yeah, maybe that's true,
dude. I mean, really, come on. So I remember that came out when I was talking about our All-Star game. All All-Star game means something. That's back when home field advantage for the World Series, and the Royals needed it and used it, and we won because of that. So that's why I said that. I remember.
So, listener moment here. In 2014, I went to all 89 games that were played at the K. Went to all 81 home games and the 8 postseason games that followed. So I take a lot of the credit for that World Series run. And then they did it next year. But yeah, that was a bucket list item. Some people know that about me. Some people don't. I would never do it again. I don't know how you get out there every day, even with the great job of talking. But yeah, I really learned to appreciate. I oftentimes found myself saying, I'm sore from watching 10 games in a row. I don't know how these guys get out there and do that. So, okay. Now, Rex, normally when we have 3 guests, we play a game called Mixtape. And for those listening, you can play mixtapethegame.com. But I want to take a little twist on this. And I think that normally we pull a card, we read a scenario, and we all name a song that matches that scenario. But in this case, having you here, I think we all need to announce what our walk-up song would be. And then we will vote. You cannot vote for yourself, and then we'll have a winner, hopefully.
Okay, interesting.
And
I
I've got a really strange selection for mine. And I can go first, or I can wait.
Yeah, no, Matt, go ahead, man. It's all.
I'm going with the theme song to Three's Company.
Oh, I don't even know that.
No.
Come and knock on my door.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll be waiting for you. You gotta be really old to know what I'm even talking about. It's a Jack
that's a good
Ripper and
one.
all. Yeah. I mean, because no one else has done that I'm
I
aware
like
of.
it.
I'm trying to come up with something new. All right.
Well, it seems like most walk-up songs are like gangster rap or something these days. But I'm going to go with old school Center Field by John Fogerty.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome right there, man. I love it. Now, there was, 5 years in the American League and 5 years in the National League. Some of the places would play their own song for you, and like on the road especially. And I remember in Pittsburgh, I'm stepping in the box, and I hear the organist start cranking out "Doggy in the Window." So I stepped out of the box. I looked up in the booth and like, really? Okay, all right. I stepped back in and I hit a line drive right by the pitcher's ear, man. It was beautiful.
Are you going with Doggy in the Window?
Yeah, Doggy in the Window was kind of given to me by the Pittsburgh organist. I love Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood.
Oh.
Yeah, I like that too. Because, when I competed. I didn't compete for friends on the field. I was kind of a dangerous ball player, especially the first 5 years in the majors. After the 10 years in the minors, I had a bad attitude towards my opponents because someone had to pay for the 10 years I just did. And that made me dangerous. And I had to calm down and mellow out a little bit. I think going to Japan helped me a lot. And I played a little bit more under control and not with the intent to hurt my opponent.
I think we might have to stick with Doggy in the Window then, and not Bad to the Bones. Well, it's time to vote, and Rex has my vote with Doggy in the Window.
Matt, me too.
Yeah, Rex, you don't even need to vote. You don't even have to pick a favorite Matt right now.
You guys are making me feel good, man.
You're the big win. Well, this has been great, and this has been. I need to have you on more often because we'll bring you in to do the heavy lifting.
Oh man, hey, look, we haven't even touched some of the subjects that I've been through that I'd like to share, especially the persevering. Young people, whatever. I mean, it was so hard. It would have been easy to quit, like you said. But I just can't. I had to be true to myself, and I had to be true to who I was. And you look down inside in your heart when you get backed up against the wall, and what's going to come out is what you put into your heart. And when you put into your heart love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, it's amazing when you're confronted what comes out. When you put the world in your heart and you put all the negativity that's in there that happens every day, and when you get confronted, people come back and fight. I wasn't a fighter when it came to any kind of a confrontational deal. I was a competitor in baseball, but I tried to put the fruits of the spirit in my heart, and therefore the kindness comes out.
So, Master Watson, as we refer to him, Rex, what's your take from our Rex experience today?
Well, I think his story in the majors is a similar that you hear a lot. Most of these guys don't go in and start for the Yankees the first weekend. There's usually years of hard work in the minors that nobody ever hears about, and it's like starting a startup, right? I mean, we work for years trying to get our product right, figuring out how to sell it, go to market strategy, build the team, raising money. And then eventually someday, we hit a grand slam and everybody celebrates. And it's like, you didn't see all the shit I did for all these other years. Where were you? Right? It's a similar story.
The overnight sensation that tried for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every once in a while you get somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, like here in Kansas City, we have like a Bubba Starling, right? I mean, he was a local guy. He was supposed to be the big deal. Is he in the majors?
Yeah.
Is he playing for the team?
He was 7th pick overall, I think, or 6th.
Yeah.
Fifth or 6th. Yeah, he was up there. Yeah, up there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's getting much playing time, but I mean, his similar journey. I mean, Kansas City's been rooting for him for years as the local kid. Years he's at it trying to make that journey, right? And then maybe he'll be a big star for the Royals one day, but Nobody realizes that journey that everybody has to go through.
I think for me, there's something that's really stood out here. And well, first off, there's one thing you can control, and it's your attitude. And there's a zillion variables that can be thrown at you for a zillion different reasons. And I'm not a big believer in luck. And, those of you that listen often know I say that a lot. And preparation and opportunity is really what most people define luck as. And you get into these situations like, Rex, you seem like you've had even though you may have been a fierce competitor, that doesn't mean you had a bad attitude. You have a good attitude about yourself, about your future, that I want to show up, I want to do work. I say all the time that success demands payment in advance. So start writing checks. And no matter who you are, what you do, it doesn't matter if you're a baseball player, if you're a startup founder, anything you do, if you want to do it well, you have to dedicate yourself to all of it. And you have to humble yourself. Like you mentioned sitting behind Willie Randolph. I mean, I don't know. Is he in the Hall of Fame? Because if not, he came pretty close.
No, he hasn't made it. And I don't know if he has the numbers to, but he was certainly a Hall of Fame person. But
yeah,
Matt,
these guys, you got to humble yourself, but you get an opportunity.
Two things a ball player can control. Yeah. That's attitude number one.
Yeah, what's the other?
One is what you said is for a ball player, but number two is hustle, your output, your attitude, and then your hustle and output. If you control both of those things and you have some talent, you have a chance to go a long way. And so I tried to incorporate those only things I can control, and that was that. And you're right. I was a dangerous player physically, but I had the right attitude. And I was shaped that way as a young person. So that's why I'm thankful for my upbringing and my coaching, it taught me how to hustle and taught me the respect of my authority, the respect of my manager. And my managers, matter of fact, Yogi, Billy, Earl, my first 3 years in the majors, Terry Francona, Joe Madden, Joe Torre, a guy named Whitey Herzog. These guys were my daddies. And so when I played for these guys, I looked up to them like they were my father, and I would do anything for them. Okay, so right there, man, Skip, what can I do for you today? So that right there opens up the door to a lot of things.
Well, we may have lost Rex into the digital abyss, but what a guest. That was, I got to say, anybody that's willing to write a letter to George Steinbrenner asking for a promotion is okay by me. What do you think, Matt?
Definitely take some stones, as he said earlier. So
yeah,
that was great. He was awesome.
All right, well, that was our Rex Hudler experience. So we'll see you all next time.
Thanks.